right, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 6th day of February 2024. I want to introduce the panelists. Dr. Kip Kurik Chepkoni is the CEO at Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Sam, for having us.
Great. Titus Lote is the Member of Parliament for Kacheliba constituency. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Diana Gishengo is the National Coordinator at the Institute of Social Accountability. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Governor Ahmed Abdullahi, Governor of Wajir County. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Great. And we are here to have two key conversations that is centrally on the question of counties, the issues they are witnessing right now, the service delivery, the quality of that, but also concerns about various programs. You've had the Governor of Tharaka Nithi, the chair of the COG, a committee on health talking about how they want doctors treated. But also there is another conversation of what's going on with the IEBC. We'll shortly be listening to what Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of majority at the National Assembly, is saying. But before we get to that, let me start with you, Honorable Lote, because a High Court judgment has come out and said that the recruitment of commissioners should continue without any further delay because of the questions that are yet to be answered. You're talking about delimitation of boundaries. You're talking about wards in a constituency that are yet to have a parliamentary, a representative by failure to have by-elections conducted. What are your thoughts? Because Kimani Ichung'wah is saying that the recruitment should wait for the NADCO report that will guide on how to pick a selection panel.
Well, first of all, I want to appreciate the High Court for making such a ruling, because we've actually been waiting for this for a long time. And one of the discussions that we're going to have today is all about the boundaries review that is supposed to be ending by the 7th of March 2024, according to the Constitution. So the fact that the High Court is trying to unlock this is very good. But I also think we need to go back to our discussion. The reason why we were at the NADCO was because this country was burning last year, early last year. And so we had to constitute a team that was supposed to look at some of the aspects. And one of the aspects that was looked at is a comprehensive review of how we're going to reconstitute our IEBC. And so as much as the High Court is doing it, I really appreciate that. And I think the High Court is doing the right thing. We also need to have this report, the NADCO report, because we did not do an exercise in futility. We did an exercise that was supposed to unlock. So for me, I'll allow both. Personally, I'll say it will be important that the High Court considers also some of the recommendations that came from the NADCO, because the NADCO had a discussion across board. We had the LSK giving their views, we had the COTU giving their views, and many other institutions, and they talked clearly about what needs to be done, about the review, about the constitution of our commissioners. Yeah, so for me, both needs to be considered with a lot of weight.
So what should you do? Because there's already a selection panel that there's no order stopping it from functioning. Do they go
well, we cannot deny the fact that the High Court has made a ruling. And once they made a ruling, we cannot go against it. But I think what Kimani Ichung'wah is saying and what I am saying is that let us also try to look at this other process, because it cost the taxpayers money. It had a lot of people coming in. It costed a lot of time. So the High Court, the process will go on. Of course, there is no way in which we can deny a process that has been ordered by the High Court to continue. But requestingly, they need to also consider the report that has come out.
Dana, what should happen? Because the court order is very specific on what the Nelson Makanda team should do. But then also the NADCO report has also its proposals on reconstituting how that panel is picked.
Thank you very much. First is to recognize the strength of our Constitution as was displayed in the decision by Justice Mugure Thande. And in saying that we already have a mechanism, there's no vacuum currently. The Constitution has laid out the process, the IEBC Act, there's a selection panel, there's political discontent about how the selection should continue or how we should reconstitute the selection panel. But there's a serious vacuum. There's a serious vacuum. So it is when the High Court was seized with the facts of what we are looking at, the boundaries review, by-election, and I think on this particular show we have raised severally the risk that the continued delay by Parliament and the NADCO process occasions this country. There are people who are not being represented. So I think that particular decision reminds Parliament, reminds the executive, reminds the people that the Constitution is so strong, whereas there is room for dialogue. When that fails, all the architecture and frameworks of the Constitution will set in, and everybody will be forced to conform. So because the selection panel is purely about trust. Now the Constitution cannot help us about trust. The political class must work on how they build that trust. The High Court cannot rule on how we build trust. So just the Makanda-led team proceeds with the appointments according to the court order. If any other person or arm of government wants to appeal and we get a stay, that's okay. But for now, as Kenyans, we are happy that there will be a process that allows us to look at other processes, by-election, the delimitation of boundaries, because we are creating more. By that delay, we are creating more problems. We created NADCO because there was a crisis, but if we continue like this, we will get to 2027 unprepared as well.
But if the Nelson Makanda team is to proceed and recruit a commission that already the opposition has said that we will not take part in an election that has those commissioners, whether they do or they don't, I mean, already there's that political suspicion that you're talking about. And you're saying that the Constitution cannot cure that. But how do we ensure there are no such challenges because of this perception?
When it comes to matters of integrity, I don't know what else we can cure, because where are these people that we want? Look at the process that led to the appointment of the 4 commissioners. The opposition and the government side all agreed on a mechanism. At the end of it, we saw a split commission. And if you look at the history since the IPPG, every time there's a new mechanism. Let us try religious leaders, let us try political party representatives. These people are just Kenyans. If we decide that whoever is appointed, even on this panel, I think I'm a good Christian and a good Kenyan, I could be appointed to become a commissioner. I don't think the political class must cure this. And you see, in this particular instance, it's both the government side and the opposition that is saying you must follow NADCO.
Yes.
Should we then be worried as people who are not in politics that for once there's even consensus that let's follow NADCO? And if that was the case, there is nothing that stops Parliament from telling the High Court, this is how we plan to comply with the decision. That is something that is very much allowed. And then the court will move from the current decision to a structural interdict that guides the process. So it is not it must be respected, but how we move forward is not to trash it. Is to show how we can then strike a balance between what the Parliament is saying and what the High Court has ruled on. But for now, the Makanda team should continue to interview.
Let's listen to what the Leader of Majority says in regards to this particular question. Let me proceed.
We also intend on keeping our word in terms of the National Dialogue Committee's work and the engagements that we had with our colleagues, because at the end of the day, we also want a process where we are not seen to be controlling the recruitment of IEBC commissioners. And therefore, we want to do this in good faith. We want to have a process that is inclusive. I hope the Leader of Minority has agreed on the membership in the House Business Committee, and also mobilize their members to quickly adopt the NADCO report, as he mentioned. And we will do the same on the Kenya Kwanza side, so that we have a law, because justifiably, the people of Banisa and the other wards that are due for by-elections deserve representation as a matter of their constitutional rights. There's also the urgency with the review of boundaries. although we have a challenge that we also noted in NADCO. Whether or not we have a commission today, the delimitation of boundaries cannot be completed within a month before the end of March this year. So we have challenges, we had proposals on what we may need to do on that, and we will be pursuing those also.
All right, that is the leader of majority. Governor, what are your thoughts? Because it's not the first time we're having such challenges, like Diana says, about how to pick an electoral commission. But this suspicion appears to be taking us so far on the negative side, because Kimani Ichung'wah is actually now saying that they don't want to appear as if they're in control of the system of selection. Yet this was a question during the review of the current IEBC Act. I think it was in 2022.
Right. On this one, I agree with Kimani Ichung'wah. You know, yes, we need to respect court decisions, but you know where we've come from. You know, there is a belief by, should I say, at least half of the country that the elections didn't go right. This is why people on the streets. And a political elite consensus is integral to our governance in this country. Actually, it is, because then what's the option? The option is that the country will burn. So we then need to align whatever it is that was being done at NADCO with the court decision, including, of course, going back to the court to ask for more time through an appeal of the decision. But wishing away the discussions at Bomas will be a recipe for more chaos on the streets, in my view.
But what system would we follow? Yes, you're saying that we can ask, excuse me, ask for more time, but how do you stop a legally appointed selection panel from functioning?
I think there's a lot of ways that that can be done, including the parliamentary process, appealing that decision in view of the reality because the court will make a decision based on the facts that's before it, so probably some of those facts have not been to the court. But I believe the courts are also part of our reality.
Interesting.
Right.
Dr. Chepkwony, so what do you think should happen? Because the judge says that political expediency should not take the place of constitutional provisions. In fact, she goes ahead and says that this dialogue process or bipartisan talks that were are not founded in any law or constitution. Yet here we are, Parliament is just about to consider a report that should stop what is already going on legally.
I think from my personal view, Sam, what we should be asking ourselves is what my brother Yelote said. The parliamentary process to process that NADCO report. What are the time frame? What are the timelines? Look at the length that it has taken for this NADCO report to be tabled, for it to be adopted, for it to grow into developing a bill to amend the laws on IEBC and all other attendant legal instruments, so that it legally then becomes a binding document. What the court is referring as, it is not legally binding, which is, yes, it's not legally binding because it is not yet in Parliament. It has not been processed yet. So I think the truth would be, we also must be very just to the people who do not have representation yet. And in the interim, the National Assembly, in my view, should find a border point where they're able to say what happens, because Governor here knows very well that we have denied the people of Banisa and other wards their representation, which is their right in law. As much as this NADCO report has been developed as a result of what Governor has referred as the need to build political consensus. However, the principle of law is where your rights end is where mine begin. So the political elite want the right to be heard for them to build a political consensus. But the people of Banisa and other locations in this country who have no representation, their rights have also been infringed to that extent. So for me, I would think that the solution to this, what Diana is saying, the Constitution is supreme. The solution to this is the IEBC selection panel to continue their job Parliament to fast-track the processing and the adoption of that report, because we know very well the report will be tabled. We are hopeful that it will be adopted, because there is this side saying we are not in agreement with some contents of the report. Some army saying we are fully buying this report. Some people, a month ago, as soon as the NADCO team concluded, say, no, we are not in agreement. Now they're saying, no, we are in agreement with it. So what is it? Again, Governor will tell you here that that report touches on the counties, the operation of the counties, touches even on the operation of the boundaries. So it then means, as soon as the report is tabled in Parliament, adopted with or without amendments, Senate has a place. It will have a bite on the cherry, because it has aspects of the counties. Right. So look at the time frame that we are looking at. What if National Assembly agrees to the content and Senate disagrees with it? There is need for mediation again. So look at all the possible probable avenues on processing of this NADCO report and the length it will take, the time it will take. Right. So for me, there is need to fast track. The solution would be the National Assembly or Parliament, for that case, need to fast track the adoption of this report and processing of the omnibus bill to ensure that all the NADCO report recommendations are input into law. So that now, then, the selection panel can be able to proceed with the job.
So I think we're all saying the same thing here. But let's take a step back and ask, how did we get here? Right? How did we get actually to forming NADCO and getting to talk? Because there was political turbulence, which was grinding everything to a halt. We don't want to get back there. And we respect the courts. All we're saying is, can Parliament fast-track what it's doing to align it with the realities of our laws and constitution? But I think we cannot disregard the substance of the discussions of a legal form. Can we align the legal form to the substance?
Yet, Honorable Lote, this could have actually been avoided. I remember how heated it was in reviewing that law in 2022. And there was almost chest thumping, people saying that indeed these are the same people that reviewed the previous law by themselves, between the then opposition and the then, okay, I don't know what opposition, but
the minority.
Minority opposition. So this is something that could have been avoided. Don't you think Parliament has actually failed Kenyans in answering this question, which is more than a year old?
Well, I don't think Parliament has failed Kenyans. That's the reason why Parliament is the only solution here. We're waiting for the NADCO report to be tabled before Parliament. And this is my view before I actually talk about Parliament. What is the reason why we should have a constitution in any country? I think the constitution in any country is a set of rules and laws that does solve. Like it does not solve many. And the reason why we fought last year, we went to the streets and we had to form NADCO, was because some aspects of the constitution was not agreed with. So for me, we talk about the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. The unlocking of this will lie in Parliament. Why am I saying so? It's because when the Constitution was not able to solve issues in this country last year, people formed the NADCO. And you can agree with me now, the leader of the majority, the leader was not able to solve the problems that we had last year. The reason why we went to the streets. We went to the streets because the government and the opposition were not able to agree. The sets of rules and laws that is called the Constitution was not able to get people out of the streets. What got people out of the streets was when they agreed to sit down and look at what are the challenges facing this country. And the reason why...
It was because of the inadequacies of the Constitution or the politicians?
It is because of the inadequacies of the Constitution. If we had adequate constitutional balance, then we would not have gone to the streets. Why did we have to sit and say, let us look at some other sets? The reason why we sat in Bomas was we wanted to look at other sets that will unlock this country from the challenges that we went through last time.
The answer is?
And the answer was NADCO. Kenyans were asked, please come and give us more views. The reason why they were.
Honorable Lote, what I'm saying is, so you're saying that the challenges that we witnessed last year was the gaps of the Constitution, and NADCO is the only way. So I'm asking, what are those gaps? What is the answer from NADCO?
I'm talking about the spirit and the letter. The Constitution is the letter. What needs to be done, what else needs to be done. But when we find ourselves...
that it could not fix, right?
Yeah.
Which ones?
One of the gaps was the appointment of the judicial service. Not judicial, but the IEBC. It is not an illegality, but it was not agreed. It was not agreed on. It's not of the Constitution, but we could not agree on it, despite the fact the arguments that we've got now is the judges are looking at the Constitution. They're looking at the letter. They don't want to look at the spirit of this country.
Nabolote, you're losing me because you're not responding to my question.
I am responding to your question.
Unless your answer has shifted.
No, my answer has not shifted. My answer is, there is the letter, the Constitution, that says do this, don't do this. And that's exactly what the judges...
The appointment of IEBC.
The judges, what are the judges saying now? The judges are saying that this commission, the Makanda team, should go ahead and appoint the commissioners. The spirit of this country, we have heard it from the leader of the opposition. We've heard it from the leader of the majority leader in parliament. They say, let us go to NADCO. Why are they referring to NADCO? We have a consensus that let's go to NADCO because that is where we believe we agreed more than what the Constitution provided. We agreed because we call Kenyans and we say we are fighting, we are going to the streets. We are not agreeing, both the leader, the majority part of parliament and the government, the opposition and the government. We are not agreeing. So we sat down. We have a team of people who are sitting down to look at what are other things that are beyond the Constitution that are making us go to the streets. Immediately, people sat in Bomas. You actually saw the temperatures go down. So we addressed the spirit of the Constitution. The letter of the Constitution cannot solve this matter. And the reason why I'm saying, let NADCO report be adopted in Parliament. Let it come to Parliament. And once it comes to Parliament and fail, that is when you can accuse Parliament. But before it has come to Parliament, do not accuse Parliament because we are going to do justice to this country.
Governor, just hold on, Diana. Governor, so the NADCO report touches on so many things. IEBC is just one of them. So is there a mechanism, I know you don't sit in Parliament, but is there a mechanism to ensure that each of those pertinent issues that were touched on by NADCO are implemented, or is it going to be piecemeal because now there is almost an emergency to fix IEBC question?
I honestly, first of all, to be fair to the Honourable Member of Parliament that you try to put on the spot, I wouldn't think it's either the Constitution or politicians that were the problem. We do not anticipate that a divided IEBC commission will deliver an election result. And that almost got the country burning. It's good that the aggrieved went to court and abided by the decision of the court in spite of their grievances. But they took their political grievances to the street, and there was a reality that they could not be wished away, and that we need to talk. And that's how we got here. Let's not forget that. So I think what Parliament needs to do is to just fast-track the progression of the NADCO report and to deal with all the issues. I believe if there is goodwill on both sides of the political divide, it should be possible to move it faster.
Interesting. Diana, so what are we dealing with here?
I think we are just dealing with politicians holding this country hostage. And we must try as much as possible to think about other commission. We are about to discuss counties. So the Commission on Revenue Allocation, would it raise such contention? Yet there's a clear mechanism for how to appoint commissioners there. National dialogue in the Constitution should be in Parliament. We should never have gone to Bomas. We have lost a whole year of redressing a problem. And now we have to go back to Parliament. Decide whether we will have omnibus law. If they go that way, some of us will be worried about public participation because the issues are so many that each of them, I never went to Bomas. I didn't. I'm waiting for Parliament because that is where the Constitution guides me to take my views. You see, it was like the decision was a no-brainer. That was a discussion between two people, and it's okay. But it is not anchored in the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear. Parliament shall lead national dialogue. And that is why after all that, the political elite must go back to parliament. If they keep delaying us, then there's a law that they already passed that has significant, has the full force of the law, has people who have been appointed. Imagine if you were shortlisted last year in March. Will you apply again to a new panel? What happens to, maybe this election panel, I wouldn't even be worried because there's always elite consensus of how to tell them, we are sorry, we appointed you, this is how you go home. There's always a consensus. But nobody is discussing the implication of that delay. The last time we did this, 2021, we appointed commissioners in readiness for a 2022 election. Got CEOs very late, directors very late. What was the end result? An election that would have gotten 2 different announcements, taking us back to another 2007 moment. I think there must be a way of telling the political class to stick and take all their dialogues within the constitutional framework. The only thing that NADCO was supposed to heal was the fact that the minority side felt that they had lost their power within parliament. So the dialogue was to allow the majority and the minority side to represent the people properly. When they go and try to do a legislation in Bomas, that is not the place of making legislation. And for any law, we will still have to wait, especially if it's of a constitutional nature, the same timelines that are there.
Once that report is translated into bills, are they still illegal?
No. And at that point, some of us, I've told you, the minute there are bills, we will be there engaging with the elected representatives.
Okay.
Sam, in my view,
yep.
I think the political consensus is underrated in this country. It is critical. It's integral to our governance. This is my view. Actually, if you ask me, the difference between what has carried Kenya to where it is and what has made Somalia go to the dogs is political elite consensus. It was a timing issue at the end of the Cold War, where the government in Somalia didn't read the signs of the time that you now needed to talk to your political opponents,
right,
and go the multi-party way. The fact that the late President Moi did that is what brought us where we are. And even at that time, of course, his generals and his followers were saying, no, stick to your one-party rule. But he saw the signs of times, and he talked. And I think many times we've come back from the brink because of this elite political consensus. And partly it's because we also cast aspersions on our institutions. You know, if we go out there and say we don't trust the judiciary, we don't trust IEBC, and then what option is there? The only option is for people to go to the streets. And after they've gone to the streets, what happens? We're all in our sitting rooms and in our mosques and churches, pleading that they speak, they talk, and they bring us back from the brink. And that's where we were. So we can sit here and discuss legalese, but the reality is NADCO cannot be wished away.
Okay.
So all we're saying is, can Parliament then align the reality with the law?
And Daktari, as we exit this conversation, so in the end, a lot of political mistrust highlighted here. How do you ensure that the Constitution does not become an inconvenience for politics in Kenya?
See, the Constitution, we are the ones who enacted it. Diana talks about public participation. Lotte here has also made reference to that. There were gaps. And you know, the Constitution being a live document, where there are gaps, it is expected that through legislative processes, constitutional review processes, which exist, which now we are saying, is this country mature enough now to take that risk of opening up a Pandora's box of constitutional review. Because what we are referring to is that there was a consensus politically, what Governor is referring to, that there is need some of the aspects in the constitution or in law, not necessarily in constitution, because even what you're talking about, IEBC law, is just a legislation, not really within the constitution, but guided by the constitution, is that there would be need for parliament, as Mheshimiwa said, that they will be able to fast track this. But then there is a huge risk. For me, look at NATCO. It is parliamentary process, because the committee that sat there was adopted in parliament. So then it is a parliamentary process as it is now. But then the report needs to be tabled. Tisa here, Diana said, we did not participate. So for any bill then again that will come out of this report, there is need for political consensus and capital, which Governor appreciates much, that do we have the time? Is the time ripe for that consensus in parliament? Two risks are out there again. When it comes to the issue of legislative development, Diana and company here will be waiting for public participation. There is also a Kenyan there who may feel infringed by whatever result the legislation from the NATCO will be proposing. Public participation will be carried out again, now on the bills that will be developed in parliament. There could be a Kenyan there who might want to run to court. So for me, I'm looking at what are the risks, what are the pitfalls that we might run into in processing this bill. However, as Governor said, is this the golden opportunity that NATCO unlocks the political crisis that has resulted in also legal crisis? It's not a constitutional crisis. It's just legal crisis that needs to be unlocked, and Kenya should progress.
Okay. Of course, the NATCO report proposes to review the selection panel composition. Parliamentary Service Commission has 2 members now. The proposal is to retain them at 2, but the mode of picking more defined. Public Service Commission has 1 representative. The proposal is to kick them out. Law Society of Kenya has 1, to retain 1. Political Parties Liaison Committee has 1, to go up to 3, with a different mechanism of picking them. The Interreligious Council of Kenya has 2, to retain 2, and ISPAC has none now. The proposal is to them propose 1 person to make a panel of 9 persons. So we wait to see what happens. But as that stands, the current constituency boundaries expire on the 6th of March 2024. They must be reviewed by that date. It is highly unlikely that that will happen. Another crisis looms as to what that means constitutionally. Any review that happens after that, would it be constitutional or not? We take a short break. When you come back, we talk about matters counties.